baseball history, in whose name the award is given to the best pitcher in the league every year. This is Clayton Kershaw, who's won 3 of those awards. And last night, he broke a record held by Cy Young that had lasted for more than a century. 3 consecutive starts of no runs, at least 10 strikeouts, and no walks. Cy Young had 2 straight. In the process, Kershaw extended his consecutive scoreless streak to 29 innings, recorded his 11th complete game shutout, struck out 11, and was perfect into the 7th inning against a hopelessly mismatched Met team. Tonight, little-known lefty Ian Thomas becomes the 13th different starter for the Dodgers. He has a very tough act to follow here in New York. It's a beautiful night for baseball, and live from Citi Field in Flushing, New York, Sportsnet LA presents the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Mets in Game 2 of this 4-game series. Hi again, everybody. Charlie Steiner, Oral Hershiser, Nomar Garciaparra. We begin our broadcast tonight with a birth announcement. Congratulations to the Greinke family. Zach and Emily have given birth to Bodie, 6 pounds, 5 ounces. As far as the Dodgers are concerned, the expectation is now that Zach Greinke will be here tomorrow to pitch for the Dodgers in Game 3 of this series. But tonight, the 13th different starter the Dodgers have used this season, Ian Thomas.
Who is he? 6'4", 215-pound left-hander who came over in the Juan Uribe trade from Atlanta, and this guy needs to throw the ball accurately. He is a fastball, changeup, breaking ball pitcher, but the changeup is the best pitch. 23 games at the big league level between LA this year and Atlanta, but Nomar, this will be his first big league start, and I'm sure he's glad to have a veteran shortstop behind him.
Well, yeah, Jimmy Rollins, we know what the defense that he's provided for the Dodgers all year long, but it was his offense that came up big yesterday, really providing the only run that Kershaw needed for that victory, coming up with his 31st home run against the Mets. Despite having a down offensive year by Jimmy Rollins standard, it should be no surprise the success he's had against the New York Mets. Look where he ranked as far as all-time hits versus the Mets. That's Hall of Fame company right there, right behind Pete Rose and Lou Brock. Hopefully he continues that success today.
John Neese pitching for the Mets. Ian Thomas for the Dodgers. Game 2 of the 4-game set coming up from New York. Back with the lineups and first pitch right after this. 3 degrees, no humidity to speak of, as the Dodgers and the Mets get ready for the second game of this 4-game series. And our closed captioning is brought to you by Shumash Casino, where we are all about you. And here is the Honda starting lineup put together by Don Mattingly, who is back there somewhere. Jock Peterson, Howie Kendrick, and Justin Turner will be the first 3 hitters. Van Slyke's celebrating his 29th birthday today, giving Adrian Gonzalez a night off at first base. Puig at right. Kike Hernandez's last hour insertion into the lineup. Guerrero is going to be in. He's got a balky back. Jimmy Rollins, Austin Barnes, and Ian Thomas will be pitching and batting ninth against the 28-year-old right-hander from Defiance, Ohio, Jonathan Nice.
Well, Nice has been very effective over his last 7 starts with an ERA of just 2.0. Comes at you with a fastball, cutter, curveball, changeup, and an occasional slider. But nearly 70% of his pitches are either that fastball or cutter that hover around the high 80s to low 90s.
It's been a roller coaster of a season for Nice. In his first 6 starts, an ERA of 1.95. In his next 5 starts, an ERA of nearly 8. But in his last 7 starts, as Nomar mentioned, an ERA of just a shade over 2. Jock Peterson leading it off, and away we go in the second game of this 4-game series. There is a strike inside corner at the knees, and it's 0-1. Peterson at 228 with 20 home runs and 41 runs batted in. Last night, 1 for 3, hit by a pitch, and he would score a run. No balls and 2 strikes. Kendrick on deck, Turner to follow.
Jock among the leaders in home runs, of course, in the league, and also in walks. 7th in home runs with 20 and 59 walks, gets him to 4th.
But that was his 117th strikeout, and that leads the National League too. Defensively tonight, behind Jonathan Nice, Murphy at third and Tejada at short. Wilmer Flores at second base. Lucas Duda at first. Michael Conforto is making his major league debut in left. Lagares in center. Granderson in right. And Kevin Plawecki is behind the plate. Howie Kendrick steps in. Kendrick at 291 and takes high and away. 1 ball and no strikes. Kendrick had the night off last night. Kike Hernandez started for him. And there's a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike. As we come to air tonight, there's a report in New York that former Dodger Juan Uribe may be coming here to the Mets, along with Kelly Johnson. Ground ball deflected off Nice. It's going to be an infield hit for Howie Kendrick. The Mets in dire need of some offense. And it looks like, if the reports are so, Uribe could be here in a day or 2.
And I think both Howie and the Dodgers catch a break here that it deflected off Nice's glove, because it looked like the second baseman, Flores, was in a good position to field that ball if it gets by the pitcher.
And here comes Justin Turner. Hit 340 last year, 321 this year. And of all the hitters in the National League, with at least 500 at-bats, Justin Turner has the highest average since the beginning of last season.
You know, that rumor on Juan Uribe coming here would not only bring the Mets some production, but the leadership. And I think their whole team would feel like they just got a change of scenery because of the infectious personality of Juan Uribe. He would change the chemistry in the locker room. He would change the ego of the team. And all of a sudden, everybody around him, I believe, would be a better player.
It was a devastating blow to lose David Wright, their team captain, face of the franchise for nearly a decade. He's got a bad back, and they don't know when or if he'll be back. Turner takes high and away. 1 ball, 2 strikes. So Turner with 12 home runs. And Nice, who has really stepped it up since the 1st of June, a 2.28 ERA.
It's appropriate to talk about Juan Uribe because the guy at the plate in the batter's box is really the reason that Juan Uribe was expendable to move for the Dodgers, and also with Hector Oliveira on the horizon. And Alex Guerrero at the time was very hot and could play at third base.
And so what the Dodgers got in return, of course, for Uribe Alberto Callaspo, who's done a nice job in a utility role, primarily at third base. And tonight's starter, Ian Thomas. As Turner fouls it back. The Mets at 49 and 47, 3 games behind Washington, but you read the local papers, you think they've been about 60 games out of first place.
They are getting hammered on a daily basis. And last night it was interesting even to listen to the crowd even cheer foul balls almost. They're just so down on them.
Well, they can't hit a lick. They're at 233, lowest batting average in the league, but the pitching has been terrific. That has what's kept them afloat, and they've been looking for some offense, and it looks like they're maybe soon getting them. Into right center field, and that's going to be a base hit. Splits the seam, rolls to the wall. Kendrick rounding third. He's on his way home. Throw to the plate, and he is safe. Head first slide underneath the tag of Plawecki. Turner with the double, and the Dodgers take a 1-0 lead.
First off, obviously a great hit by Justin Turner, but that was just a great slide by Howie Kendrick at the end. Justin Turner staying inside the ball, driving it to right center. Howie Kendrick, day off yesterday, so they're going to test them with the legs. Let's go. Let's see if they're heavy. And look at that slide, and I think he gets that hand in there. I'm sure they're going to have a look to check to make sure, but Howie Kendrick does an excellent job there to get away from the catcher. There was definitely an alley there for him to slide, and he makes a good one.
And no replay request. And Van Slyke on his 29th birthday pops to short center field. Lagares calling off Flores. So with 2 out, here comes Yasiel Puig. Puig at 259, 5 home runs and 20 runs batted in. 0 for 3 and a sac fly last night. Give Puig a lot of room in left center. And a chopper slowly hit. And the pick by Tejada gets Puig, and that ends the inning. But an infield hit for Kendrick. An RBI double for Turner, his 42nd of the year. And Ian Thomas has been given a 1-0 lead to work with. Ranking 29th out of the 30 clubs in Major League Baseball. Here's the starting lineup he's put together tonight. Brought to you by Honda, with Curtis Granderson leading off. He's got an 8-game hitting streak. Tejada and Murphy and Wilmer Flores at 249 batting cleanup. Then Lucas Duda, Juan Lagares, Michael Conforto coming up from Double-A, highly regarded prospect, Kevin Plawecki, John Neese pitching and batting ninth, and 28-year-old Ian Thomas making his start for the Dodgers.
You see down there in yellow, first career major league start, and the 10 innings at the big league level this year. The guy who really needs to throw the fastball changeup combination very effectively, and then the curveball is really the off-speed pitch below the changeup.
Fastball strike inside corner, belt high, and it is 0-1 to Granderson. Thomas 6'4", about 215, overthrows a fastball, and it's 1-1. The Mets can't hit much of anything, and especially left-handers. Their team batting average against southpaws is .216. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Or is that a sign that he hasn't started much? I mean, obviously this is his first one in Major League, but the fact that he's going from the stretch right from the first hitter.
Yeah, he only had 22 minor league starts, and he's been really somebody that has been a prospect for a long time because he's left-handed and he's got a great pitcher's body.
And the 1-2.
And I think the thing that has kept him in the game has been his changeup. And so his tools play a little bit better as a starter. He doesn't have the exceptional breaking ball, and so if you're going to be a left-on-left guy with a changeup, that's going to make you more effective even against righties. So I think this is a chance for him to make an impression and an impact. He cannot pitch up in the strike zone. He might be able to do that at the minor league level, but at the big league level, he has to live from the top of the knee to the shin is where he should be.
3-2 to Granderson. Breaks the bat. And Granderson out by a half a step. Nice play by Justin Turner. Boy, that bat was shattered.
That was shattered, but Justin Turner did a good job recognizing how fast Granderson is getting down the line here and reading this ball. So he gets his body in position, and we just see that bat just shatter. But watch Justin Turner here, how he gets his body. Okay, all right, and then there's that last little spin of the ball to stay with it and still get the out. It's definitely worthy of a Carl's camp.
Indeed it is, and indeed it was. Now Ruben Tejada steps in. Turner, of course, until a year and a half ago, was an employee of the Mets. Tejada at .250, couple of home runs. He's had a hit in 10 of his last 11. His Met team, as we mentioned, .216 against lefties. Over the past 5 weeks, collectively, they're hitting .161 against left-handed pitching. And of course, Thomas getting the start today. What with Zach Greinke on paternity leave, I believe by now he's on an airplane back to New York. Here's the 2-0. Missing high and outside. 3 balls and no strikes. So Greinke could either go tomorrow or Sunday. Then the question is, Brett Anderson, as Alana was saying on the pregame, had a good, healthy bullpen today, and Anderson could go Sunday or Tuesday. There's strike 3-1 to Tejada with Murphy on deck.
That's where Ian Thomas would like to live, but you need to live there a little earlier in the count. Don't wait till 3-0 to throw it down there. That's where you should be working.
The 3-1. Line to the left field for a base hit. Tom Goodwin greeting Tejada at first base. Murphy has 900 career base hits. Had the night off last night. Wilmer Flores on deck. Dodgers with the early 1-0 lead. Turner an RBI double. There's a strike, and it's 0-1.
Or as a starting pitcher, if you're team gives you the early lead, does it feel like this is the? Do you feel like, okay, I have to have the shutdown inning from the very first inning?
You don't feel like it in the first batter. You're trying to find your legs and get in the rhythm of the game.
Van Slyke, Rollins, Van Slyke. 3-6-3 double play. And you get a sense that Ian Thomas is breathing a sigh of relief, and on Van Slyke's 29th birthday, Dodgers have a 1-0 lead. And there's a similar story to be told, Alana.
Well, up until about 5 p.m. this evening, guys, we weren't sure if Jonathan East was going to pitch or not. He was potentially a scratch. The reason being, his wife is about to go into labor also with their second child, but obviously you see him here tonight, so he obviously still has some time. And the good news is he is actually home. We checked into it with Elias Sports Bureau to see if any time there had been before where both scheduled starting pitchers were scratched because of a childbirth. We were not able to find anybody, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say Neese and Greinke would have been the first pair, guys.
Kike Hernandez, no balls and 2 strikes. Hernandez starting tonight, a last-minute insertion into the lineup. Alex Guerrero stiff back. Well, Hernandez started at second base last night.
I'm just thinking about Elias. Like, they are looking for information like that, you know? You have to check, like, no, we don't have it.
Drilled into left field for a base hit. Conforto quickly over to cut it off and keep Hernandez to a single.
Original lineup, Kike Hernandez was not in, but it pays off. The scratch from Guerrero's stiff back stays right on this hanging breaking ball on the outer half of the plate, out in front slightly because of the timing, but good job getting on top of it.
So Kike Hernandez making his 5th start as a left fielder this year. Jimmy Rollins steps in, and over the course of his career, he has moited the Mets. And he does it again with a base hit into left field. The Dodgers in business, first and second, and nobody out.
That's Jimmy's stronger side this year, hitting .296 right-handed with 2 home runs, while only hitting .188 left-handed. So keep him on the right side, driving this ball by the third baseman right there, Daniel Murphy.
So Rollins, of course, saw the Mets 18, 19 times a year throughout his entire career until this season. Phillies and Mets are not exactly kissing cousins either. Now Austin Barnes stepping in, making his 5th start. Grandal the night off. Of course, A.J. Ellis remains on the disabled list with the knee. Barnes takes inside, 1 ball, no strikes. Ian Thomas will bat next. Barnes has been a patient hitter at the plate.
I really like a lot of his actions behind the plate, in the batter's box, on the bench when he's sitting there with Rick Honeycutt or one of the pitchers that he's catching, or A.J. Ellis schooling him. He is working, and he's looks like a really good athlete.
1 ball, 1 strike. Slicing toward the right field corner, and it is a foul ball by a couple of feet. Austin Barnes, born in Riverside, lives in Corona. 5'10", 185 pounds. He came over in that big trade with the Marlins, as did Kike Hernandez, who returns to second base, and Jimmy Rollins is at first. Dodgers with the early 1-0 lead. 1-2. And he's hit by a pitch. So the Dodgers now have the bases loaded and nobody out. Neese comes and asks for the catcher Plawecki to come out and talk to him.
Well, the Ian Thomas on the mound, the guy who's in his first big league start. And the Dodgers playing the Mets, and you like to capitalize. They've really got to take advantage of this bases loaded, no out. Give some padding to the lead.
Well, let's see if Ian Thomas can help himself out.
In some ways, if he can't swing the bat, you just want him to get out of the way and have bases loaded, 1 out.
Well, a run will score as Thomas bounces into the 4-6-3 double play. Hernandez crosses the plate. The Dodgers take a 2-0 lead.
He squared it up. He hit it hard and made it routine double play. If it finds a hole, that would be outstanding. But
they got a run out of the deal, and it's 2-0. Now Jock Peterson taking his good time to get Thomas a moment or two to catch his breath.
That is always appreciated by the pitcher that just ran down there to try and stay out of the double play, just to bring your heartbeat down a little bit so that you're going out to the mound prepared and calm.
And at his first big league start, I'm guessing his heart is racing double time.
And everybody knows it. I mean, the umpire knows it, understands it, respects it, that you're taking your time. They're not yelling at you, hey, let's go, let's get in the batter's box.
1 ball, 1 strike to Jock Peterson, a strikeout victim in his first at bat. Jock with 20 home runs, 41 runs batted in. Rollins leads from third, and Peterson takes low and outside. Dodgers this year, when scoring first, are 37-11. And they're up 2 here in the second inning. 2-2 to Peterson. So for Ian Thomas, the first inning and a half nearly, things could not have gone any better. He's got a 2-0 lead, and Peterson drills a base hit into the right field corner. Rollins comes in to score. Jock's on his way to second base. He'll hold there, and the Dodgers take a 3-0 lead. For Peterson, his 42nd run batted in, and his 16th two-base hit.
Peterson, for me, on that one, the prior swing, his step, we know he's got that leg kick, but it looked like he stayed and kept that front shoulder in longer on that second pitch, on that pitch after the curveball he swung and missed. Made the adjustment, was able to keep that bat in the zone longer and get a nice double down the line.
Now, Howie Kendrick.
That front shoulder stays in there. It doesn't come flying out. We saw the one before where he swung and missed, and it was just really, everything was flying open. Really tried to look like hit it a mile. That one just stayed on it.
Kendrick 378 with runners in scoring position. It's a ball and a strike. So the Dodgers jump on an offensively challenged team with 3. A run in the first and 2 here in the second.
Well, you mentioned the 378 with runners in scoring position for Howie Kendrick. If he can drive Jock in right here, he'd start to squeak into the top 10 in the National League, sitting at number 11 right now in RISP.
Davey Lopes with the sidestep. Kendrick is 9th in the league with 104 base hits. To right field, Granderson going back. He's there, and he's got it. But the Dodgers tack on a couple of more runs here in the second. And after an inning and a half, Ian Thomas in his Major League starting debut has a 3-run lead to work with. Use hashtag SNLA Data Strong Fan, and you just might see yourself in an upcoming telecast. Brought to you by T-Mobile. Wake up. Brooklyn Dodgers, of course, left town after the 57 season. Mets came into business in '62. They wear Dodger blue and old New York Giant orange. Of course, the Dodgers and Giants left New York simultaneously and moved to the West Coast for the '58 season. Wilmer Flores takes high. 1 ball and no strikes. And there are a lot of folks in this town who are still angry about it. Now they've vent their anger on the Mets. 1 ball, 1 strike. Flores with 10 home runs and 40 runs batted in. 6 1/4 against the Dodgers this year. 2-1. Duda on deck, then Juan Lagares. Dodgers since 2012 are 8-2 against the Mets. 2-2.
Nomar, you experienced this because the one year I played with the Mets, there is a different feeling when you play for a New York team. And it's not about, even for me, between the lines. It's when you're out in public. You know, when you're out in public and I was a Dodger or an Indian, people were happy to see you. And they were enthralled with meeting a big leaguer or being around a big leaguer. In New York, the original comments are usually hi and something about the team, and it's usually a negative. It's just a different vibe.
Negative if you're struggling.
Yeah.
You know,
maybe over the top positive if you're doing, or worried that you're going to falter, even if you're going positive, even if you're going well.
Yeah. Well, I've had teammates in Boston, and after a starting pitcher, after a struggle, he walked into the bar after that game, and the bar booed him. So yeah, it is a little bit different.
It's just a different vibe. And that's where I think where the pressure comes from, the big city environments where the fans treat you a little differently. And of course, LA, one of the biggest and best cities. But be treated with a lot more respect in Los Angeles.
So Ian Thomas with his first strikeout of the game. And of course, fans in Boston and Philly are equally compassionate.
Well, it's different even for your family and your kids. You know, you go into the restaurant and you're just almost worried about, you know, what are the kids going to hear? What's my wife going to hear?
Here's Lucas Duda. One of the few Mets who can hit left-handed pitching. But on the season, it's been a struggle. 237 with a dozen home runs. Dodgers begin the night 3 in front of San Francisco, 9.5 in front of the Diamondbacks. The Padres have fallen to 4th place, 10.5 games back. Up high. And Colorado 13 off the pace. One ball and one strike to Lucas Duda, who takes inside.
Yeah, the fact that San Diego has dropped so far out of the race now, people that were looking for pitching, all of a sudden, you know, 2 weeks ago it was probably a seller's market, but it really has now become a buyer's market. So many people have started to fall out. And when it's just when the Padres all of a sudden become a seller and not a buyer, you know, you've got a chance at James Shields, you've got a chance at Ian Kennedy, you've got a chance at Andrew Cashner. Tyson Ross. I mean, Hamels available, Cueto's available, Gallardo's available, Mike Leake's available, Samardzija's available.
Greg Kimbrell for somebody looking for a.
And, you know, Kazmir comes off the board and goes to Houston. He's going to pitch for the Astros tonight.
On 2-2. Duda down on strikes, 2 out. Nobody on.
But, you know, as much as the Dodger fans have been worried about the rotation and when is the brass going to make a move, the market has changed to a positive as far as if Andrew Friedman is looking for pitching. And I'm sure he is, because there are a lot more sellers now and the quantity of possibilities has gone up.
And that's still subject to change over the next few days.
Mm-hmm.
So now with 2 out, nobody on, Lagares at 254. In the top half of the 3rd inning, we'll have a special guest. Alana Rizzo downstairs. We'll be talking with Clayton Kershaw after the magnificent performance he turned in last night. One ball and one strike. It was a man against boys competition last night. Kershaw now at 29 consecutive innings of shutout baseball. The 1-1 to Lagares. 2-1. Kershaw in the month of July, 23 innings and an ERA of .27, 45 strikeouts and 2 walks.
I heard you, Charlie. I have to laugh. It's unfathomable what they're doing. He and Zach and him last night. I mean, we were all prepared for a historic night, and I think he had the stuff to do it.
Granderson ruined the party with a leadoff hit in the 7th. Backhanded by Rollins, he'll have no play. Lagares is aboard with an infield hit.
We were talking about the New York fans, and they're all clapping here. They're clapping for the hit, but they're also clapping for the rookie.
Michael Conforto is making his major league debut. As he steps into the batter's box, when he was announced prior to the game, he became the 1,000th player in New York Met history. And right at Van Slyke. Hit it right on the button. But that's that. No runs, 1 hit. We'll go to the third, and when we come back, that man will be talking to Alana Rizzo.
Absolutely magnificent outing last night. And Kirsch, we talked to you after the game, but after a few hours of processing it, what would your take be on it? Anything you would have done any differently?
No, the slider that I gave the hit to in the 7th, I thought it was a decent pitch. Maybe, obviously you probably want to get that into the dirt 0-2, but you know what, when you're worried about giving up a hitter here or there, it's okay. And, I got the win at the end of the day, so I'll take it.
I talked to Scott Van Slyke earlier today about whether he thought maybe something special was happening. He said when he saw the way that you used your slider in your last outing, he said that he knew that was another pitch that you were dominating. Did it feel better in this one yesterday?
Well, I think my slider was probably a little better in the Washington game than it was last night. I gave up all my 3 hits were on slider last night, so there's probably a little bit of difference there between here and Washington. But anytime you make it through 6, you feel like there's maybe a decent chance at it.
Ian Thomas making his major league debut, a left-hander like yourself. Do you talk to these guys when they're coming up and perhaps have a little nerves or a few butterflies?
If they want it, I don't really want to tell them anything that they don't want to know. So, if they have questions, definitely all ears, or if they want to know how I attack somebody or anything like that. But, if they don't ask, I figure that they're okay and they're ready to go.
Speaking of okay, you're much better than just okay. What has worked for you, Clayton, specifically in your last 11 starts?
You know what? I don't really know. I think it's just feeling good out there. Things tend to work out for the best when you're just kind of consistent the whole time through. So, I don't know if I'm doing anything different than I was when I was struggling earlier in the season, but the results are better, so I'll take it.
John Weissman with the Dodger Insider said that. Oh, yeah. Get out.
Oh, yeah.
Not bad.
All right. See you guys.
All right, see you later. Justin Turner, guys, with the solo shot back upstairs.
Well, Justin Turner tonight has a double. That home run now his 13th, tormenting his former team. And the Dodgers take a 4-0 lead. About Kershaw on those last 11 starts in his 81 2/3 innings dating back to May 26th. Kershaw struck out 112 and walked only 11.
Justin Turner just putting salt in the wound of the Mets letting him go. It's one thing to face your old team. It's another thing to face your old team that released you. And to be the best hitter in baseball over the last 2 years as far as average.
Well, with a minimum of 500 at-bats, nobody has a higher average since the beginning of last season than Turner.
I mean, it's one thing, we from a trade, we get Yasmani, Matt Kemp, and you're going, okay, maybe who got the better of that deal, and people are questioning, and obviously Yasmani being an all-star, showing that. What's it like when you just get a guy who's just released and you get him?
Van Slyke with a base hit to right.
Scott Van Slyke giving himself a birthday present.
When Turner hit the home run, he was in midstream with Alana. So the Dodgers now 4 runs and 7 base hits.
I don't know if he was happier for the home run or to get out of the interview.
I gotta go high five. I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. I got an excuse.
Puig takes low and outside. 1 ball, no strikes. Puig bounced to short in his first at bat. So the Dodgers at 4-0. That one is well hit to left center field off the bat of Puig, and that one is gone. A home run. Yasiel Puig's 6th home run of the year. A 2-run shot. Nice and the Mets don't have any idea what's hit him. Six to nothing Dodgers.
Yasiel has struggled, and he has struggled with his power, but that pitch way out over the plate, able to reach it and actually really one-handed out of here.
He's just so strong.
His 6th home run of the season.
You know, he one-handed that ball and he was reaching. He stayed on it just a little bit better. There are times balls on the outer half which have really been getting him, especially breaking balls on the outer half, where he starts pulling off of it. But one hand, 2 hands, still strong enough to hit it out of the ballpark.
Carlos Torres, who the Dodgers saw last night, working in a hurry. Even the foul balls are loud against Nice tonight. Hernandez making his 5th start in left field. Wasn't supposed to. Alex Guerrero was in the lineup until about an hour before the game, and his back stiffened up on him. Murphy will throw out Hernandez.
Well, not every day do you get ready for your big league start and get a phone call that your wife's in labor, and you still are going to take the mound. Not to give Jonathan Nice excuses, but I'm sure his mind is in multiple places.
Jimmy Rollins coming up. Well, the Dodgers this year, when they hit at least 1 home run, are 41-27. And when they score at least 4 runs, they're 43-6.
That facial expression on Yasiel Puig in the dugout is completely different than the one he had when he got off the bus. And I happened to be walking through the tunnel with him as he got off the bus, and he reached out his hand, gave me a little high five, said, "Hi, Poppy." And I said, "Hang in there, big guy. Just keep working. It's a long season. Keep working at it." And immediately he just kind of got a serious look on his face and just walked the hallway all by himself. But the whole time he was taking his top hand to the baseball down the whole hallway for about 400 feet.
You know, I was wondering, I noticed that he's only wearing 1 batting glove and no batting glove on his top hand. Oh. And I'm wondering if it was because maybe to get that feel for the top hand and thinking about it without putting that batting glove on.
So Rollins works out the walk. Austin Barnes coming up.
See, the first at bat, he has 2 batting gloves on that one. His first at bat, he only had 1 batting glove, but that one looked like that top hand came into play to allow that barrel to stay through the zone a little longer.
So the Dodgers with 6. 1 out, 3 in the top of the 3rd, and Austin Barnes was hit by a pitch in his first at bat, steps in. Fouls it off.
It's a great opportunity for Ian Thomas now to get 6 runs from his team and go out there in your first big league start. You're in a pitcher's ballpark facing a very anemic offense in the Mets.
There's one. But Barnes runs exceptionally well for a catcher. Stays out of the double play.
Barnes hits this ball back up the middle, and as you mentioned, Charlie, the key is the hustle right out of the box. Wasn't hit really hard. He's just watching it, but getting down the line. And I know there's been little things that you've liked from him, Oral. You know, that body, the movement. But let's not forget, he's a converted infielder to catcher, and showing off the wheels there.
It used to be years ago that the catchers were big, burly guys. That has changed over the years. And there's a comebacker, and Nice will throw out Thomas, and that'll end the inning. But Justin Turner opens the top of the third with his 12th home run of the year. And after a Van Slyke single, Puig cracks his 6th home run. Dodgers come up with 3 and lead 6-0 after 2.5. Jeep Cherokee with an EPA estimated 31 highway MPG. It's the perfect choice. Visit Jeep.com today. 2 home runs for the Dodgers in the third. 1 for Turner and 1 for Puig. The Dodgers now with the National League leading 121 home runs. Have a 6-0 lead for Ian Thomas, making his starting debut in the majors, and it couldn't go any better so far.
Well, he's gotten some offensive support. He's throwing strikes. At times he's kept the ball down, and he really has not put himself in any position where he could fail.
Plawecki to lead it off. Jonathan Nice's night is done. There's a pinch hitter in the on-deck circle, Danny Munoz. So Nice gets cuffed around by the Dodgers. There's Munoz. 6 runs, 8 hits in 3 innings. A walk, a strikeout, and 2 home runs. And he had come in, Nice had, as a very hot pitcher.
Last 7 starts, he had an ERA just a hair over 2.
And he gets cuffed around for 6 runs and 8 hits in 3 innings. Plawecki to right and deep. Puig on his horse, and he tracks it down. Yasiel Puig with the catch in the first out of the third.
So many facets to a good catch. Getting a good jump, getting a good read, running a great route. Yasiel does them all right there.
And so here's Danny Munoz. Pitch hitting, switch hitter. Comes up empty, and it's 0-1. Munoz has been up and down for the Mets this year. Playing at AAA Las Vegas. This is his 5th trip to the big leagues. He's hitting .295 in Vegas. And right now, Ian Thomas is pitching with confidence, and he should. He's got a 6-run lead.
What does it feel like in a 0-0 game in your first big league start, or a 1-0 game compared to a 6-0 game? It's just, you feel so free and easy. Every pitch feels like you could just cut it loose, like that fastball right there for that strikeout. And you don't feel like you can lose the game on the next thing that you do. You have so much equity and so much room to make a mistake, and you feel like you won't make one.
Well, that's good, because you know, the rest of the team also appreciates that. They're going, okay, we got you a 6-run lead. They don't want to see your pitcher going out there and walking guys. Go over there, attack the strike zone. Trust you have the good defense behind you, and he's been doing that.
2 out, nobody on. Granderson grounded to Turner in his first at bat. Of course, it was Granderson who broke up the perfect game in the 7th inning last night against Kershaw. One ball, one strike to Curtis Granderson. .250 with 14 home runs, 31 runs batted in. His hit last night extended a hitting streak to 8 games. Tejada on deck. 1-2. I'm not sure realistically what Mattingly, Honeycutt, the rest of the Dodgers figured they'd get out of Ian Thomas tonight. Well, right now they're getting nothing but house money to play with. 28-year-old left-hander from Virginia Beach. Went to the same high school as Ryan Zimmerman.
A lot of pieces have been brought up here into the Dodger bullpen just to make sure there's enough length after the bullpen has gotten worn out by the number 4 and number 5 starters at time, and that's really the reason that he was brought up. But I think he's going to be sending Emily Grinke a baby present for Bodie.
Looped down the left field line and foul by 3 feet.
Well, you and I were talking about it. You know, for him, this is an opportunity to leave an impression.
Oh, yeah. This could change his whole life and his whole career. He might feel something out there with the 6-run lead, pitching in the big city of New York, and all of a sudden find something, a light bulb goes on. There's scouts in the stands, you're on TV, the Dodgers need starters. You never know what will turn your life around.
Making his debut off Broadway. 2 balls and 2 strikes.
I mean, you can't design the scenario any better for him. First base ball club. Starter goes down on paternity leave. He gets an opportunity. He's got the lead. Pitching against a team that in some ways is almost like a AAA-and-a-half offense. So the equation is perfect, and he's throwing the ball really, really well.
3 strikeouts, no walks, 2-2 to Granderson. 2 out, bottom of the 3rd. A knee buckler. 4 strikeouts for Ian Thomas, who now has retired 4 in a row and has 4 strikeouts on the night. One of the first 40,000 fans in attendance. Wednesday, July 29th, receive a Yasiel Puig bobblehead presented by Jack in the Box. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotions. So everything coming up roses for the Dodgers on this Friday night in Queens. Carlos Torres replacing Jonathan Neese, who was knocked out after 6 runs and 8 base hits. Torres pitched an inning last night, walked 1 and struck out 2. Top of the order for the Dodgers. Peterson an RBI double in the second. He struck out in the first. And here it is the fourth. And the Dodgers are batting third time around. The familiar sounds of jet planes. Of course, LaGuardia is just a couple of miles down the road. Old Shea Stadium, which they finally demolished after the 2008 season, and not a moment too soon.
A couple of our strategies, Charlie, and Nomar will chime in with planes flying overhead, and you are the pitcher or the shortstop or the base runner.
That's an easy play for Duda, 1 out.
I used to like to throw the ball and time it when the jet started rumbling right over the opening of the stadium, as loud as could be, because I thought it maybe throw off the hitter's equilibrium a little bit, and I used to a lot of times throw off-speed pitches with the noise. You were telling me a few things, Nomar.
Yeah, you're coming in here, usually sitting down, going over your scouting report, and they used to tell us, okay, and here, if you're on second base and you hear those jets, they like to pick off because you can't hear the third base coach yelling. You know, the shortstop will sneak behind you, yelling you back. So always be on your toes, and you're basically letting you're on your own, so be ready.
And it was always a thrill a minute to announce through that stuff. 2 out, nobody on. Kendrick bounces back to the box.
Yeah, I like to pick off at second from the mound when they were coming too.
Oh yeah,
and
that's what we were.
It was almost
ready.
an automatic signal for me. It was like I knew daylight play was coming from my shortstop or my second base when the planes were coming. So from the mound, do it too.
2 out, nobody on, and Justin Turner coming up. Turner 2 for 2, a double and a home run. And a call strike, nothing in 1. Now 13 home runs, 43 runs batted in, and an on-base percentage of .390. Still one of the great mysteries. How is it that the Mets just said goodbye to Justin Turner? Into right field, Granderson going back, and he can't get it. Turner is now 3 for 3 with his second double.
It's amazing how guys come back to their old teams and play so well.
It really it's unbelievable.
And it doesn't even have to be a guy like Justin, who's been the best hitter per average over the last year and a half. It can be a guy who's been in a slump for a month and he comes back and plays his old team.
Jimmy Rollins did well against the Phillies.
Yeah.
So now here's Van Slyke, who has singled and scored a run. 6 runs and 9 hits for the Dodgers. There's a strike. Nothing in 1.
I was thinking Juan Uribe had a couple RBIs versus the Dodgers over there in Atlanta.
We were saying before the game, scuttlebutt around Citi Field was that Uribe may be coming to the Mets along with Kelly Johnson for a couple of prospects. No balls and 2 strikes. That sounds like a John Hart kind of a trade. Came from Atlanta. The Rays making no bones about the fact they're trying to rebuild their franchise in time for the 2017 season when their new stadium will be ready. The 0-2, 1 ball, 2 strikes to Van Slyke. Puig on deck. Well, we know that Matt Harvey's going to be pitching for the Mets tomorrow night. Here's the 1-2 outside, 2 balls, 2 strikes. It may be one of 2 Zacks, Greinke or Lee. Although Lee not on the roster as yet, that's a possibility. Brett Anderson could go Sunday or Tuesday. He had a good bullpen today. Outside and low 3-2. So Don Mattingly and Andrew Friedman, Farhan Zaidi, they've been juggling.
Flores has got a really good breaking ball, spins it really well, but the best ones are all wide in the left-hand batter's box. If I was him, I would think about moving over on the rubber a little bit farther over to the third base side. He's more in the middle.
Full count to Van Slyke. And that's going to be Flores making the catch, and that's going to end the inning. No runs and a hit. Turner 3 for 3 tonight. The Dodgers have a 6-0 lead after 3.5.
The hill for work in the bottom of the 4th inning. Everybody with the Los Angeles Dodgers and Sportsnet LA would like to congratulate Zach and Emily Greinke on the birth of their first child. Bodie Nicholas Greinke was born last night into the Greinke family, coming in at 19 inches, 6 pounds, 5 ounces, born late last night. We hope Bodie and the entire Greinke family are doing well, and Daddy Zach already on his way back to New York City, guys.
Now will he pitch tomorrow or Sunday? I guess we'll find out together. Ruben Tejada leads it off in the 4th. And through the first 3 innings of his debut start in the big leagues, Ian Thomas has struck out 4, given up a couple of hits, hasn't walked anybody. 47 pitches, 28 strikes. Tejada takes a strike. 1-1.
Nomar, you share a birthday with Bodie Greinke.
Nice. Yes.
A belated happy
There you
birthday,
go.
by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's along with Pee Wee Reese, Don Drysdale as well. Slash.
Pee Wee Reese, Don Drysdale,
Slash. Hung Chi Kuo.
Hung Chi Kuo.
Uh-huh. And we have, Chuck Krim. But yeah, and now Bodie.
Remember, Hung Chi Kuo came in here.
Oh, yes.
It was a weekend series. It was a big series for the Dodgers. The Mets were really good then. Here's Kendrick. First down. Pitching that weekend was Quote opened the series.
It's a quote, and was Stoltz as well.
And Stoltz was in the back end, and Greg Maddux was in the middle. Dodgers took 2 of 3. Maddux was the only one who didn't win it.
Yeah.
And they both were making their debuts here.
A Hall of Famer. Couldn't get the W. The other two guys just went out there.
Talk about introducing themselves. That was the most improbable series.
The total age of the other two is probably Greg's age.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Now Daniel Murphy. Was it the same year or a year later in the playoffs in the first game when J.D. Drew and Jeff Kent were thrown out at home plate in the first inning of the first game, and you got the sense the series was over right then and there?
Let's not bring that one up, Charlie. Oh, I remember that.
Oh, good. One ball, one strike, and 1 out in the bottom of the 4th. And it's 2-1. I think that may have been the same.
It was.
Yeah. Strange things happen between the Dodgers and the Mets in the late 2000s. 2-2. Murphy not on the same page with home plate umpire Field and Culberth. Culberth could care less. Dodgers with a win tonight would go 56-42 and be at the high water mark, 14 games over 500 for the first time. Nationals lead the Pirates 4-2 in the bottom of the 4th in Pittsburgh. The A's and the Giants at AT&T Park later. Ian Thomas, 57 pitches, 34 strikes. Make it 35 and strikeout number 5.
A little cutter. He went fastballs up and in, above the waist at about 90, and then this one's at 88. And watch the little cut on it. It takes it right to the corner. Very nice pitch. Up and in, low and away.
2 out and nobody on. We mentioned coming into the game that the Mets, lowest batting average in the league by far, as a group 233, but against lefties 216. And over the last 6 weeks, they're hitting about $1.50 against left-handed pitching. So this was a perfect situation for Ian Thomas coming in, and then his club has given him 6 runs to work with. Your cleanup hitter is in 249. But it's an improvement over last night's lineup. Second time since 1920 that a lineup had the number 4 and 5 hitters with batting averages under 180. When the middle of your lineup is hitting under $180. Mayberry was 170, Campbell 179. The 2-1 to Flores, a strikeout victim in his first at-bat, takes inside and low 3-1.
Weren't you talking about that before, Charlie, where they're the second team, and the other team was, what'd you say, like Oakland? But they were saying they'd already clinched, so they sat all the regulars.
Their lineup had too much bubbly.
Got under it. Rollins makes the catch. Nothing across. 10 straight retired by that guy, Ian Thomas. We go to the 5th. At the moment, Puig steps toward the batter's box with 2 batting gloves.
You're right. And I mentioned in that first inning, look, he only had 1 batting glove on. The top hand did not have one. It goes back to what Orel was talking about, how he saw him just, motioning in the air about getting that top hand on top. Maybe he felt something there. He also was wearing just 1 batting glove during batting practice, wore 2 that last at bat. Probably getting the feeling and ends up hitting a home run. Hopefully has the same feeling now.
It was his 6th home run of the season. Carlos Torres beginning his 2nd inning of relief. Jonathan Neese knocked out after 3. So Puig with 6 home runs and 22 runs batted in. Slices it foul.
And you talk about him working on things, and hopefully slowly he's coming out of it, swinging the bat better. He's had 8 RBIs in his last 7 games.
So what helps him or doesn't by having 1 glove or 2? What is there any logical reason to that?
Sometimes it's a feel. So we're talking about him working on trying to get that top hand through the zone better as compared to just pulling with the bottom hand, which has a tendency to make the barrel drop. You see him swing underneath a lot of balls or swing off a lot of balls that break on the outside.
Down on strikes. First out of the 5th.
So as he's working on things, say in the batting cage, working with Mark McGwire, John Valentin, and they're telling him about that top hand, sometimes you use a lot of 1-hand drills. I bet you he's probably going, okay, I feel it. I probably feel it better, or remind myself, instead of having 2 batting gloves on, I remind myself, well, the one that doesn't have it, that's the one I really got to fire through the zone.
Now Kike Hernandez. Hernandez figured to be watching this game tonight up until about an hour before game time. After batting practice, Alex Guerrero was complaining of a sore, stiff lower back. So out with Guerrero, in with Hernandez, making his 5th start in left field for the Dodgers this year. Started at second base last night. He's been a very valuable utility player for the Dodgers, coming over in that big deal with the Marlins. Hernandez has singled, scored a run, bounced to third, and fouls it back.
Not only can Kike play a lot of positions, but there is not one position where you really worry about it. He plays it at a quality level, and the energy that he brings when he's in the lineup, it's infectious.
Here's the 1-2. He lays off. First base umpire Jim Reynolds. He's close to home. Grew up in Connecticut. Went to UConn. Hernandez breaks his bat and bloops a hit into right center. Kike Hernandez 2 for 3. Be one of the first 40,000 fans in attendance. Monday night, August the 10th, the Dodgers have the Nationals in town, and pick up your Fernando Valenzuela pin, the 5th in the Cy Young Pin Collector Series, presented by 76. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotions.
And congratulations again to Fernando Valenzuela on becoming a U.S. citizen
A couple of days ago. That's just so cool. Now here's Jimmy Rollins, who has tormented the Mets throughout his career. Has singled, scored a run, and walked tonight. Hit his 9th home run of the year last night. The switch hitter batting for the left side. 1-1. One ball and one strike. Rollins made his major league debut, 53 at-bats in 2000, and stayed with the Phillies for 15 years. Career .267 hitter. That's Tejada. Two out, and Austin Barnes coming up. Look back on that trade with the Marlins. Of course, D. Gordon, Dan Herron went there. But you've got Barnes, Kike Hernandez. Of course, part of that deal was getting Haney from the Marlins, and then went to the Angels, and the Dodgers would end up getting Howie Kendrick. Into right center field, and that is going to drop in just before it goes to the wall. Granderson cuts it off. Now there's going to be a play at the plate, and that is the difference between safe and out. That was a terrific play by Curtis Granderson, but with 2 out, can't quibble with sending Kike Hernandez home, especially with the pitcher coming up next. No runs, 2 hits, and 1 man left. Lorenzo Bundy sending him home, and Plawecki tagging him out. By Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most exciting lineup ever. Shop ChooseNissan.com. And by Flex Alert. This summer, the power is in your hands. Visit FlexAlert.org. The Citi Field, a stone's throw from the U.S. Open Tennis Stadium, and Labor Day weekend in New York. You've got a big baseball game and the tennis going on. It's a happening place to be. So Hernandez gunned down at the plate. Duda leads off in the bottom of the fifth. Ian Thomas, in his starting major league debut, has given up just 2 base hits. He has struck out 5 and has retired 7 in a row. A 6-run lead to work with. Well, the Dodgers, to a man, were keeping their fingers crossed about Ian Thomas. And tonight, that's ripped foul. I think he has lived up to beyond expectations.
It's outstanding. You look at the workload right there, only the 4th, 17 pitches, but all zeros, no matter what number you put up there for pitches by inning.
2 hits. He's retired 7 straight. Hasn't walked anybody. Into short left. Kike Hernandez can't quite reach it. So Duda with a leadoff double.
Well, Ian Thomas doing his best Clayton Kershaw impersonation so far tonight. Morongo slow-mo cam taking a look at Kike Hernandez's effort. He is flying to get there, but in slow-mo you see the effort. You always worry about an outfielder's shoulder right there when they impact the ground with the outstretched glove. But Kike got up healthy.
And usually that ball, you're going, where's the shortstop? Where's Jimmy Rollins? But they had the shift on Duda, so he was on the other side, second base, so he wasn't going to be anywhere near that. So it was really just between Kike and Justin Turner, and it falls.
Lagares an infield hit in his first at-bat. Duda at second base is the Mets' first runner in scoring position tonight. Mets don't get many runners in scoring position, and when they do, they don't score them. In the 7 games since the All-Star break, the Mets are 10 for 71 with runners in scoring position. 141. Lagares 3 home runs, 25 runs batted in. It is 1 ball, 2 strikes. One ball and 2 strikes. The 71st pitch of the night. Thomas delivers. Chopper to Rollins. Duda advances to third on the ground out off the bat of Lagares. So the Mets are looking, and their fans in particular, looking for anything to cheer about. And Michael Conforto called up today from Double-A. Solid numbers at the minor league level. And on the very first pitch he saw, he slashed a 1-hopper to Van Slyke at first base. Dodgers 6-0 with 1 out. Thomas delivers a strike.
Definitely a situation where you trade an out for a run when you're up by 6 in the middle innings right here. Strategy is to get deeper in the game if you're the starting pitcher and to get your team in the dugout with a 6-1 lead. That's why you see the Dodger infield back. So the defense is configured according to the scoreboard and according to the inning we're in.
The Metropolitan Baseball Club of New York came into existence in 1962. Michael Conforto is the 1,000th player to wear a Met uniform. 1-2. This is the third stadium that the Mets have played in. 62 and 63, they were at the old Polo Grounds. Shea Stadium opened for business in 64, in sync with the World's Fair. And Citi Field opened in 2009. Ground ball to second base. Conforto can run. Duda comes in to score. Fielder's choice. And it looks like there's a new hero in Queens. Michael Conforto with his first RBI on the fielder's choice. Dodger lead is 6-1. So with 2 out, nobody on, Kevin Plawecki stepping in. He flied to right in his first at bat. 6 runs, 11 hits for the Dodgers. 1 run, 3 hits for the Mets. So that was the 76th pitch. Thrown by Ian Thomas. How much longer he would go? Well, the Dodgers have bullpen activity.
Yeah, we might find out after this because he's leading off the next inning.
Well, he gets out of this inning. Got Peralta out there. He can win the game statistically. 2 out, bottom half of the 5th inning. Plawecki's got a couple of home runs. Fouls it back, 2-2.
As a pitcher that's coming up from the minor leagues and you've only had 23 games at the big league level, this is your first big league start. Those 79 pitches are very intense, even with a 6-0 lead and now a 6-1 lead. It's just another level of exertion that you have to get used to, from the adrenaline and the intensity and the nerves. So I wouldn't be surprised if they hit for him next inning. It's almost like a pitch and a half when you throw it in your first game.
2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out. Plawecki takes a curve ball, and Thomas thought he had strike 3.
And he got one like that against Curtis Granderson. He didn't catch that one for a call. Take a shot at Joel Peralta down there, backing up Ian Thomas.
And that's Chuck Krim, the bullpen coach, talking to him. And a fly ball to center field. Jock Peterson is there, and that's going to do it. So Ian Thomas probably done. He's due to lead off the 6th, and if he is, he leaves on the winning side of the legend. Third, lead at 6-1. Hey, get a little more bang for the buck on Fridays as Denny's presents Friday Night Fireworks. Come on out July 31st. Take your place on the field for a fireworks show featuring music from the 1980s. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotions. So Ian Thomas, Dodgers could not have asked for anything more out of him in his first start. 1 run, 3 hits in 5 innings, 5 strikeouts. Carl Crawford batting for him to begin the 6th. No balls and 2 strikes to Crawford, fresh off the DL. Did he go? Oakland umpire Field and Colbreth yelling down at Ben May, the third base umpire. Did he go? And May said yes, he did. So your assessment, Oral, of Ian Thomas tonight?
You know, I thought he mixed his pitches well. He had just enough command to do well. And when he got ahead of hitters, that's when he didn't make his mistakes. There were some batters where, you know, he fell behind 3-0 or 2-0 or 2-1, and he had to battle his way back with his changeup and his breaking ball. But the key, I thought, to the outing was once he did throw some quality pitches and get ahead, he did a good job making any mistakes when he was ahead.
Now, Jock Peterson 1 for 3. He's doubled in a run in 3 at-bats tonight. Jock at .229, 20 home runs and 42 runs batted in.
I just really like the fact that when he got the lead, I mean, obviously it was from the very first inning, but they kept getting more for him, is that he was just throwing strikes. He didn't walk anybody. He was going out there, pounding the zone. And that 1 run he gave up.
Here's Tejada. And Peterson by a step 2 out.
You know, the 1 run he did give up was because of it was a bloop double.
Exactly.
Yep. So he did a really good job.
And he had 3 shutdown innings and was successful on all 3. Receiving congratulations in the Dodger dugout. Now Howie Kendrick stepping in. Kendrick with an infield hit in his first at-bat, then would come around to score in the first inning on a double by Justin Turner. Turner, who's on deck, 3 for 3 tonight. 1-1. One ball, 2 strikes. We know for sure Matt Harvey is pitching for the Mets tomorrow night. Jacob deGrom, who may be the nastiest hombre of them all, making his 19th start on Sunday afternoon. At this point, not quite sure who the Dodgers are going to be sending out. It could be Zach Greinke.
Well, the odds are pretty good. It could be a Zach.
Yes. How about Lucas Duda? The split, the short hop, and the inning is over. No runs, no hits, no errors, and nobody left on. Lucas Duda, USC Trojan. Terrific play. Play daily fantasy baseball for free on DraftKings.com. Use promo code BLUECREW for free entry. Dodgers comfortably in front, 6-1. As we head to the bottom half of the 6th inning, Joel Peralta now on in relief. His 19th appearance, 14 2/3 innings, 10 strikeouts, but he has walked 8. That's been his undoing, but that's off to Ian Thomas in his Dodger starting debut. 1 run and 3 hits in 5 innings, 5 strikeouts, no walks. Here's Kirk Neuenhuis from Santa Monica. Pinch hitting in the bottom half of the 6th inning. Now it's up to the Dodger bullpen. And Neuenhuis with a fly ball to right. Here's Puig. 1 pitch, 1 out. Well, the Dodger bullpen, of course, has been somewhat adventuresome in the last couple of months. And now they've got to figure out how to get through the final 4 innings of this game. Granderson is 0 for 2. He's grounded out and has been struck out. Breaking ball for a strike. Into left field, Kike Hernandez there. Quickly, 2 out, nobody on. Today is July 24th. On May the 24th, the Dodger bullpen ERA ranked 3rd in the league at 2.56. And on July the 24th, they rank 11th at 3.63. So the ERA has gone up over a run over the past couple of months.
And that's significant because you're talking about a lot of pitchers and a lot of innings. So it's really hard to move it that high if you're not doing very badly.
Ruben Tejada with 2 out, nobody on. And Peralta delivers a strike, and it's 0-1. Tejada 1 for 2. Daniel Murphy is on deck. Dodgers have out-hit the Mets tonight 11-3. Outscored them 6-1. Solo home run for Justin Turner in the 3rd inning. And then a 2-run shot by Yasiel Puig after a Van Slyke base hit. So the Dodgers lead the National League now with 121 home runs. Two and 1 to Tejada with a base hit tonight. He's had a hit in 11 of his last 12 games. Sliced foul, and Van Slyke is going to run out of room. Daniel Murphy is on deck. Dodgers in the 7th will have Turner, Van Slyke, and Puig coming up. Turner is 3 for 3. Van Slyke on his 29th birthday 1 for 3. And Puig hit a 2-run home run. On 2 and 2. Peralta misses outside.
You throw this one right down the middle. 2 out, nobody on, 6-1 lead. Just strength against strength. No need to trick them. No need to be painting the corners. Low fastball by the knees.
Product of that 5-run lead. Base hit into right field with 2 outs.
It's all right. Well executed pitch. Just a good piece of hitting.
I was going to say, he did it right where you were asking, Norrell. Yep. Down and away. Sometimes you have to tip your hat to the hitter as well. They got a job to do. And
you guys know exactly what's coming too.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a battle of execution to begin with, and then just tip your hat.
Tejada could have easily rolled that ball over or pulled off of the ball and missed it, but he did a good job staying on it, going the other way.
Now with 2 out, Daniel Murphy coming up. No balls and 1 strike to Murphy, who is 0 for 2. You know, before the weekend's out, we may see Juan Uribe again. Uribe and Kelly Johnson apparently coming to New York for a couple of prospects.
Atlanta is in St. Louis. So if the deal's done and he's on a plane tomorrow morning, we might see him tomorrow night.
If not then, certainly on Sunday.
Well, he's already packed for the road.
1-1. There goes the runner. Tejada had a huge jump.
That's a big leg kick, and really not much attention being paid to the runner. No chance behind the plate for Austin.
So the Braves will get a couple of minor league pitchers, John Gint and Rob Whalen. And the Mets will eat the rest of Uribe's salary. Now the 2-1. To the right side, into right field for a base hit. So Tejada will score on the Murphy single. It is 6-2. With 2 out, nobody on. Tejada single, then stole second. Murphy's RBI single. The Mets are within 4.
This is why you have the running game. Tejada doing a good job stealing second. And then Murphy staying on this ball. You know, we talk about those 2 out RBIs can be deflating. He wanted that ball away. He gets too much of the middle of the plate. Murphy does a good job staying on it and taking it back up the middle.
Wilmer Flores, who's 0 for 2, struck out, popped to short. Takes a strike, 0-1. So this is where the Dodgers have been vulnerable the last couple of months. The bullpen. Thomas terrific in 5 innings. Peralta's given up a run on a couple of hits. After 2 out, nobody on. Juan Nicasio warming up with the Dodger bullpen.
Watching Daniel Murphy over there at first base, he's both times those 2 pitches he looked like he was just trying to get a read, thinking about stealing.
He's stolen 1. He's been caught twice. Nicely blocked by Barnes.
I think you're right, Nomar, and this is a pretty good pitch to run on right here, 2-1. Joel Peralta has been abbreviating his leg kick since the stolen base earlier in the inning.
Dodgers led 6-0 into the bottom of half of the 5th. Mets scored a run. And they've got one here in the bottom of the 6th. The Pirates now have a 5-4 lead at home against the Washington Nationals. Held off to the right. 2-2 to Wilmer Flores.
Scott Kazmir, the first big piece to change organizations, is now in Houston, is leading 2-0 for the Astros over Kansas City in the bottom of the third.
Luna on the Astros strike quickly in the deal with Billy Beane and the A's. Dodgers play the A's next week at Dodger Stadium. Line drive, center field, base hit. 3 hits in a row now given up by Peralta. Rick Honeycutt going to call Chuck Grimm. Is Nicasio ready? In the meantime, the Dodger infield is going to buy some time. That's Grimm at the other end. Mattingly taking his time. Lucas Duda coming up. And Mattingly is coming out. And he is going to come and he is going to get Peralta. Wasting no time, pointing to the bullpen. First pitch of the inning, Neuenhuis flied to right, then Granderson flied to left. Then successive singles by Tejada, Murphy, and Flores. A run is in, 2 on, 2 out in the bottom half of the 6th. Dodgers 6 and the Mets 2. Do know for sure that Matt Harvey is pitching for the Mets. Not sure yet who the Dodgers starter will be. Sunday, breakfast on the West Coast, 1 o'clock here. The Dodgers fly home. And then Tuesday and Wednesday, as we mentioned, the A's will be in town. That's the Dodger calendar presented by 76. And here's Juan Nicasio. Nicasio making his 32nd appearance. Ian Thomas went 5 innings tonight. Gave up 1 run and 3 hits. Joel Peralta went 2/3 of an inning. Gave up 1 run and 3 hits. And the 2 runners aboard, Murphy at second and Flores at first, are the statistical responsibility of Joel Peralta. Well, the bullpen, as we mentioned, has been an issue. Started out great April and May. June, not so much. And July, it has really been a struggle. The Indiana Jones rickety bridge is getting more rickety by the day. Now Nicasio has to deal with Lucas Duda, who has faced Nicasio 4 times, 1 for 4. He's a real big hitter in this game.
Good idea right there by the veteran Jimmy Rollins. Like you just mentioned, Charlie, like a big hitter in the middle of this game and possibly get out of the inning without even have to throw him a pitch. See if they could have got Murphy sleeping out there.
Juan could have gotten the ball a little earlier and a little bit on the other side of the bag.
Duda has doubled in 2 at-bats and scored a run. 1 ball, no strikes. If Duda gets on, this crowd becomes energized. A Met team that has really been struggling offensively, feeling good about themselves, getting back into the game. Lagares is on deck. So Nicasio trying to suture the wound right here. And delivers a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Dodgers caught a break, I think, on that pitch. That ball looked wide. But we'll take it.
1-1. Duda with a dozen home runs, fouls it off, and Nicasio is ahead 1-2.
Real smart pitch right there, going right back to that outside corner, because the hitter, you saw the protection swing even with only 1 strike from Duda, because he had to cover that corner that just got called for a strike. Let's stretch him out there again.
Duda 12 home runs, 38 runs batted in. Now the 1-2. We'll do it again. Duda is 6'4", 256 pounds. Born, raised, and still lives in Riverside. 7th round pick of the Mets in 2007. Made it to the bigs in 2010.
Stretched him out, coming slider down and in.
The 1-2. Got him! Lucas Duda down on strikes. Nicasio comes in, gets the job done. Mets score 1 run, couple of hits, and leave 2. We'll go to the 7th. Dodgers 6, Mets 2.
Via that guy, the newest Met, Michael Conforto, making his Major League Baseball debut today. In fact, his contract was purchased today from AA. He didn't even need to go to the AAA level in the minors. A very successful career, 133 games. You can see the numbers there. Selected by the Mets in the first round of the 2014 draft, hoping that they can give this anemic offense some pop, guys.
He's 6'1", 215 pounds, played collegiately at Oregon State. And the Mets in dire need of any kind of a jolt of offense. Call him up today. Michael Kadire has been playing with a wounded knee for a month or so, placed on the disabled list, and here's Hansel Robles making his 30th appearance. 20 strikeouts in 25 innings. Dodgers saw him in Los Angeles earlier in the month. And here's Justin Turner. Kind of sticking it to the Mets. We got rid of him at the end of the 2013 season. 3 for 3 tonight, 2 doubles and a home run. Van Slyke on deck, Puig to follow. Milwaukee has room. First down to the 7th inning. Carlos Torres for New York. 3 innings, 3 hits. 2 strikeouts, 36 pitches, 26 for strikes. Robles is the 3rd Met pitcher of the evening. Van Slyke on his 29th birthday. Single, run scored in 3 at-bats. With a win tonight, the Dodgers would go to 56-42. They'd go 14 games over 500 for the first time this year. Into center field. Lagares. As Yasiel Puig makes his way to the plate, time to take a look at our Arco top tier play. In the 3rd inning, Turner and homers. Van Slyke had singled, and Puig with the 2-run shot is 6th of the year, has 22 runs batted in. The Dodgers now with a 6-2 lead with 2 out, nobody on in the top half of the 7th. 1 ball, no strikes. One and 1 to Puig.
After his last at bat, where he struck out, he goes back to what he did in his first at bat with no batting glove.
One on, one out.
Yeah.
Backhanded at second base by Flores. Robles throws him out, and Puig throws his helmet away, and here's it from the New York crowd. He's out, and you Ian Thomas has been the story of the night for the Dodgers so far, beside their 6 runs and 11 hits. Making his major league starting debut, 5 innings, 1 run, and 3 hits. Juan Nicasio, first pitch of the 7th inning. Lagares bunts it foul and out of play.
A very memorable night for Ian Thomas. If the Dodger bullpen can secure him this victory. 28-year-old, 6'4", 215, went to Virginia Commonwealth in his first big league start to get a W. That would be a lifetime memory.
Went to the same high school as Ryan Zimmerman in Virginia Beach. 0-2 to Lagares. An infield hit, and he's bounced to short. One ball, 2 strikes. Conforto on deck, and then Plawecki. So we may see Juan Uribe tomorrow. Apparently the Mets and Braves have pulled off a trade. A couple of pitching prospects go to Atlanta. Uribe and Kelly Johnson will fly to New York. Getting Uribe and Johnson, for that matter, above and beyond what they will add to the club offensively, and this is a team that's really offensively challenged. The Mets for the last couple of years have been ripped in every newspaper, on every talk station. They don't spend money on anything. I guess they've gone out of their way to say, hey, we're picking up Uribe's contract, we're picking up Johnson's contract, we're trying to do what we can. And now we'll see.
Well, it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Here's the 1-2. And I think it's also an acknowledgement that David Wright is, for the short term, off the radar screen.
Yeah, they're probably looking, okay, what are our alternatives out there? We talked about what Juan Uribe brings. Dodger fans have seen that.
They are going to enjoy having him.
On 2-2. Jock Peterson calling off Kike Hernandez. You know, the other day when Kenley Jansen struck out Uribe to end the game down there, 2 minutes after the game, from the clubhouse, Kenley Jansen FaceTimes Uribe. He'll get a chance to
do it again.
See one another tomorrow, maybe. Michael Conforto with his major league debut. 0 for 2 and drove in a run with a fielder's choice.
Can you see Uribe walking the streets of New York in his outfits with the big stogie?
Fit right in.
He's going to draw a crowd.
No, he'll just blend right in.
That's what I'm saying. He's going to fit right in.
That's no. Wait till he walks on the team bus of the Mets. They're going to go, what?
2 balls and 1 strike to Michael Conforto.
Then he starts hiding in some guy's locker and scaring him when he comes to work, jumping out.
2-1. There's a strike at the knees. That has some fur on it. 95, 2-2. Plawecki on deck. Nicasio and his 17th pitch.
Good pitch, good swing. I'm impressed with this young man's swing, the 3 at-bats we've watched him. I can see why the Mets are so excited when he was in Double-A and now that he's here in the big leagues.
First round pick out of Oregon State. Now when he grounded out in the 5th inning, you could see he can really run too.
He's got some big league actions.
like the way the bat goes through the zone. It's the swing path that he takes.
2-2. That's got a lot of spin. Rollins makes it look easy. 2 out. It's coming to Jimmy like a gyroscope. So Nicasio has faced 3 batters, got them all. 2 out, nobody on, and Plawecki coming up. Nicasio came in after 2 out, nobody on in the 6th. Peralta gave up a single to Tejada. He stole second. Murphy would single him home. Then Flores would single. 2 on, 2 out. Duda would be struck out. Into short center, and Nicasio retires all 4 batters he has faced. We go to the 8th. The Dodgers continue to lead 6-2. Kings game summary. Justin Turner 3 out of 4, and he cracked his 13th home run of the season. Puig a 2-run shot. Ian Thomas in his Dodger debut as a starter. 1 run, 3 hits in 5 innings. Now coming off the field at the end of the inning, Peterson and Puig, and down the stretch they can. We go to the 8th.
Good to see they have a lot of energy still.
Well, at the age of 22 or 23, here's Robles beginning his 2nd inning of relief. Kike Hernandez, last minute fill in tonight. Guerrero, sore back, scratched at the last hour or so. And so Hernandez making his 5th start in left field this season for the Dodgers. Responds 2 for 3 and a run scored. 1 ball, 1 strike. Hernandez at 268.
He's the kind of player too. I don't feel like if you got him more at bats, his average would go down. I feel like he's the kind of hitter that would actually hit higher if he got more at bats.
Just outside on a 94-mile-an-hour fastball.
Sometimes your utility players, you think, you know, if they played every day, they'd get overexposed. And I'm not sure Kike Hernandez is that type of player. He's got more ability than that.
Into right center. Lagares. First out of the 8th. And here comes Jimmy Rollins. And a look at tonight's Coors Light Cold Hard Facts. Among all the active players in Major League Baseball, these two current Phillies and one former Philly have hit more home runs against the Mets than anybody else. Jimmy Rollins at the 31 career home runs is in 15th place all time. Home runs against the Mets with the 31. The all-time leader against the Mets. That is well hit to right field. It is on its way, and it is gone. A home run into the upper deck. Jimmy Rollins continues to torment the Mets. He hit one last night. He's hit another one tonight. Now he's got 10 on the year, and the Dodgers have a 7-2 lead.
We talked about earlier at the beginning of the game, this is, from an offensive standpoint, from Jimmy Rollins' standards, kind of a down year. But sometimes there's just certain places and certain teams you feel comfortable in or right at home, and this seems to be one of them. And Jimmy Rollins coming up big once again. That was on the second deck there, Oral.
That was launched.
The Dodgers now have a 5-run lead to work with.
He must have saw the graphic we just put up. He's like, I'm going to move up on that list.
The great Willie Stargell hit more home runs against the Mets than anybody else. Pops hit 60. Chipper Jones and Mike Schmidt each had 49. Stretch McCovey 48. Hank Aaron 45. Willie Mays hit 39 against the Mets, and of course Willie played his final year with the Mets in 73.
I think Jimmy's got the most per pound, though. Those are some big guys you're mentioning there.
Yep. Two and two, Austin Barnes. Beaten on a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. Two out. Dodgers lead by 5, and here is number 5, Alberto Callaspo. Who wears Uribe's old number, and Uribe is going to be here tomorrow, the next day, having been traded from the Braves. With the win tonight, the Dodgers will go 5-3 on this road trip. And they've got Greinke going one of the next 2 days. Remember, he's the other guy with the big scoreless streak after what we saw out of Kershaw last night.
Well, the two of them combined are really absolutely amazing. And now that Clayton is a few days away after the gem last night, everybody is anticipating Zach's outing.
Callaspo down on strikes. The inning is over. Jimmy Rollins, his 10th home run of the year. The 3rd home run for the Dodgers tonight. They're 122nd on the season. 7-2 Dodgers after 7.5. Tweet your photo with the hashtag SNLA DataStrongFan for a chance to be shown in an upcoming telecast. Brought to you by T-Mobile. A lot of Dodger fans in attendance tonight. Here is Pedro Baez. Nicasio, an inning and a third, 20 pitches, 15 for strikes. And he was fine. He retired all 4 batters he faced.
Threw the ball very well, located the ball in the outer half of the plate, had good velocity, nice little late tail.
And over the course of Jimmy Rollins' career, has reason to smile. He has owned the Mets. Hit a home run last night, another one tonight. His 14 seasons in Philadelphia, picking up seamlessly in his first year with the Dodgers. Here's John Mayberry Jr. A Met who was a Cardinal at Stanford. Here's a strike, nothing in one. Granderson on deck and Tejada to follow. One ball, one strike. So the Dodgers with a 7-2 lead. Scored a run in the first, 2 in the second, 3 in the third. Mets with solo runs in the 5th and the 6th. And then the Rollins home run in the 8th. One ball, 2 strikes. John Mayberry Jr. hitting 165 with 3 home runs and 9 runs batted in. Baez's 4th pitch.
Sometimes there's certain hitters I can look at, Nomar, and I know you're this way, that you can just see where to pitch them just by how they stand at the plate. I mean, he's closed upper half, overbent back knee, looks like he's going to be locked up. I don't think he can hit the ball inside.
Now the 2-2. 3 balls and 2 strikes.
His starting position, you're thinking, okay, with that front foot open, you're like, all right, he can clear those hips. But then when he strikes, that's when he closes it off.
Yeah.
And
it looks like it's going to be a really long swing from where he holds the bat and turns his shoulders.
Baez on 3-2. Mayberry, RIP.
Like that, huh?
Yeah, it's kind of the place I was thinking, maybe even a little lower. Yeah. I think the only ball he'll hit in is something down by his shoe tops. He's just coiled up like a spring, and that back leg is so bent. He's in his quad. He's not in the rotators of his legs, so he's not going to be able to even turn that back hip. It's going to be locked.
There's one out, and Curtis Granderson, who's 0 for 3, and his 8-game hitting streak is on the line. He has bounced out, flied out, and has been struck out. Granderson, Chicago born and bred. Seven runs, 12 hits for the Dodgers. 2 runs, 6 hits for New York. Pirates lead the Nationals 7-5 in the 7th inning in Pittsburgh. A's and Giants a little later on at AT&T. Three balls and no strikes. Granderson at 249. The 3-0 on the way. 3 balls, 1 strike. Granderson in his 10th big league season. Tigers, Yankees, and now the Mets.
And the stop with the Yankees is what turned his career around, working with Kevin Long there, the hitting coach.
The other thing that he had going for him, it was such a home run friendly ballpark, the new Yankee Stadium. Short left field fence, and all of a sudden Granderson became a big home run hitter. He had 43 home runs in 2012, 41 in 2011. The 3-2 to Granderson. High ball 4.
Well, the thing with Curtis, when he got there to the Yankees, Kevin Long took him from, he was closed to open. Kevin Long took him from open to closed in his approach. Then he moved his hands from out away from his body to back closer to his body. And then the other thing he did with him is he took his load. His load was on the back of his back leg, and he got it to the inside of his back leg so that back leg could really rotate. And boy, it brought him a lot of power and a lot of consistency.
And Kevin Long is now the hitting instructor for the Mets. This is Ruben Tejada, who's 2 for 3 tonight. The walk to Granderson, the first walk given up by Dodger pitching tonight. Murphy on deck. 98 too fast for Tejada. It'll be the top of the order for the Dodgers at the top of the 9th. Peterson, Kendrick, and Turner. Assuming Baez gets out of this inning unscathed, who will pitch for the Dodgers in the 9th? With a 5-run lead. There's a strike, and it's 0-2.
Could be Baez again. It could be J.P. Howell.
And let's not forget the Dodgers have Monday off, and they've got Thursday off in the coming week. It's a far cry from the 34 and 34.
It could be on how they feel if Zach Greinke is going to pitch tomorrow or if he's going to pitch on Sunday. If Greinke's going to pitch tomorrow, they might extend Baez. Not want to save him for tomorrow, but if they thought it was going to be somebody who might need some relief help a little sooner, they might want to make sure that Johnny Holstaff is kind of rested or not overused tonight.
So there's a lot that goes into a decision about who may or may not pitch in a given inning. And again, 2 little asterisks to all of that is that there are 2 days off coming up this coming week, Monday and Thursday for the Dodgers. 1-2 to Tejada, a .256 hitter.
Well, right now, Pedro Baez at 16 pitches. If he can get a ground ball double play, maybe they bring him back out, but then he's probably going to get up past 25, 30 pitches, and he would probably be shut down for tomorrow.
I was going to say, there's usually that threshold, right? Yep. Between that 24 and 26.
24 is right there.
Yep.
24, you say, okay, I can bring you back tomorrow. Should be creeping past that, closer to 30. And the fatigue and the tenderness in your arm the next day, you just don't want to risk it with your bullpen guys.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Turner to Kendrick on to first in the double play. So Baez gets into a bit of a pickle with the walk. Gets Tejada to bounce in the 5-4-3 double play. We go to the 9th. A lot of smiles for the Dodgers tonight with a 5-run lead. 100 mobile devices and connected devices with MLB.TV Premium. Real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch tracking widget, and more every night on every device. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.TV for details. That is Alex Torres. He wears that protective headgear that wraps around his baseball cap. It's the only one, I think, in baseball who does that.
I think you're right, Charlie, and I respect the fact that he wears it, but it just doesn't look like something that I could get used to. I guess you could if everyone was forced to wear something like that. You'd learn a way to compete with it, but it doesn't even look like something I would attempt to use.
Yeah, it looks, you know what, this one looks different. This one doesn't look like it's actually part of the hat. Like it's something that's on the outside of the hat.
Yeah, it looks like it's Velcroed to the back of the hat.
Whereas he used to have one that looked like it was all one hat or part of it. So see that?
I think the old one used to be where it was almost like
it was
inside.
all it was all one. It was just like that was it. That was a hat. Looks like he has a regular hat and he just puts that on the outside now.
Peterson leads off the ninth. Takes upstairs. Jock Peterson tonight 1 for 4. Doubled in a run in the second inning. Has struck out and bounced out twice.
Would that be deceptive or distractive to the hitter?
It better not be. I don't think so. No, you're not looking at. I mean, guys are probably talking about it because it looks odd because you haven't seen people wear the hat.
Right.
But when he's throwing you the ball, you're not focused on that hat. You're focused on where he's about to release the ball in the other parts.
2-0 to Peterson. 2 balls and 1 strike.
Did you soft focus on the pitcher's whole body and then fine focus on the arm slot?
That's what I did. Yep.
I did too. It didn't work as well.
Well, soft focus because the soft focus comes because that's really what you're timing. You're timing the rhythm of the pitcher. You're not timing just the ball coming out of his hand.
Peterson on 2-1. Chopper to second. It's an easy play for Flores, and that's the first out of the ninth.
When would you shift your eyes to the fine focus to the area you thought the ball was coming from?
You know, as he's going through his windup. That's why, it never really bothered me when you had a lot of the Asians when they would pause. That didn't get me out of my rhythm because I was like, all right, it's still coming. So it was really when I knew it was almost like coming out. That's when I was really honing in on that fine focus of the area where he's already stepped and it was coming through.
Kendrick 1 out of 4.
It's funny because I always say, the study should be for the major leaguer is what's the miles per hour that a guy can actually catch up to the ball if they didn't, like if you're at a batting cage and you didn't have a light or you didn't see the arm out of an iron mic and the ball just shot out at you. You're not hitting 90 miles an hour. You can't catch up to that. You can't just have it shoot. You don't know when it's coming if there's no timing mechanism. So that soft focus is on the body because that's your timing mechanism. And then you're adjusting as the velocity is coming at you.
No balls and 2 strikes to Kendrick. 291, 7 home runs and 40 runs batted in. We were wondering earlier who might pitch the ninth inning. We found out Josh Raven with a 5-run lead. Raven was called up today with Greinke on paternity leave. So conceivably Raven could be here today and gone tomorrow. Or perhaps Ian Thomas even as well as Thomas pitched tonight.
Back to one more thing on the vision, Nomar. Good hitters backdrop and bad hitters backdrop. Did it affect you then when you went from the soft focus to the fine focus right then?
Yes.
So the ball wasn't as clear.
Right. Tough to pick up the spin coming out of his hand.
And it's usually because of glare or the color of the backdrop?
More glare because now the backdrops are so big. But actually Fenway Park, there were some left-handers where the way the seats in center field come out of the hand,
out of the
release point. Yeah, and then so you would see at Fenway during day games, they would actually put a black tarp over a section of those of the stands.
Right. Well, a lot of players in Randy Johnson's day, because he was so big and he threw down off to the side, said that he was a lot of the times out of the batter's eye.
Oh yeah, that was a
huge advantage.
I think
for him.
it was really because of Randy Johnson that at Fenway they started doing it, because there were so many, especially the left-handers. I think it was Mike Greenwell who said, I don't know if he got hit. He says, I never saw the ball.
Right.
Justin Turner, 3 out of 4 tonight, hitting .328. To the right side, Duda has room. And a 1-2-3 inning. We go to the bottom of the 9th. The Dodgers 7 and the Mets 2. Moments in Dodger history. Don't miss Timeless Dodgers 1988 World Series Game 1 Sunday at 8 o'clock on Sportsnet LA. My sense is you have a vague memory of that one, Ora.
A little bit of a memory, yeah. That was the team of my life. It was an amazing year.
You're looking at Josh Raven, who was called up with Zach Greinke on paternity leave. Raven out of West Hills, lives in Tarzana. And with the Dodgers, his first 7 games at the major league level.
An awful lot of potential here. The strikeout to walk ratio is great. The ERA is really built on the 2 home runs, and those are mistakes, but the potential for him to be a dominant reliever is so much right there on the edge.
What do you think it is for him, Oral, that teeters on that edge? That's going to make the difference for him.
For him to throw the top and the front of the ball compared to the back or the bottom of the ball.
Well, the first pitch is bounced to second base, and Howie Kendrick throws out Murphy.
And a little bit like you say, Nomar, the feel of that. Like we talk about with Yasiel and what he's trying to get with his top hand. I just would want Josh to feel more like he's throwing the top of the ball or the front of the ball on his breaking ball, and I think that will bring everything down by the knees naturally. I think he has a tendency to get underneath it with his elbow.
Because it's definitely not the velocity.
And it's up and then flat, and you know a big league hitter can time a bullet.
Yep.
He's 6'4" and 230 and delivers a 97-mile-an-hour fastball to Wilmer Flores.
See the tail on that pitch right there, how it's just a flat tail compared to one that just buries down a little bit.
No balls, 2 strikes.
Same thing with that breaking ball. The potential is there to be a devastating, unbelievable breaking ball, but that, I feel like he threw the back of this ball instead of the front of the ball, and that's why the ball kind of goes up before it goes down, and it's not quite as sharp as like somebody like Clayton Kershaw.
Oh, look at the play by Van Slyke, throwing from the seat of his pants, and Raven is there at first. Happy birthday, Scott Van Slyke. Turns 29 today.
What a great play by Van Slyke at first base. Ball down the line and diving at it. But what I love, it was more than just the seat of his pants. I love it. It was on his back. He's like, I'm just going to toss it from here. I don't want to get up. Good angle by Raven over there to get there to first base. It's a fine play.
So now there's 2 out. Happy birthday, Scott. Lucas Duda. Dodgers are now away. Raven misses outside. Duda is 1 for 3, a double and a run scored. Off to the left and out of play. We know Matt Harvey is going to pitch for the Mets tomorrow. We don't know quite yet who will be pitching for the Dodgers. Here's the 1-1. This should do it. Fly ball to left field. Kike Hernandez is there, and the Dodgers, for the first time this season, are 14 games over 500, improving their record to 56-42, and at the moment a 3.5 game lead over the Giants as they beat the Mets tonight 7-2. For the Dodgers, 7 runs, 12 hits, no errors. The Mets, 2 runs, 6 hits, and no errors. High fives galore, and the Dodgers could not have scripted this night any better, as 28-year-old Ian Thomas making his starting debut in the major leagues, the Lexus player of the game. He went 5 innings, 1 run, 3 hits, struck out 5, didn't walk anybody. And while Joel Peralta struggled out of the bullpen, not so Nicasio, Baez, and Raven. So a good night for the Dodgers, who improved their record on this road trip to 5-3. That's a wrap from New York. For Alana Rizzo, Oral Hershiser, Nomar Garcia-Parra, Charlie Steiner saying good night and goodbye. Now it's time to send it back to Access Sportsnet Dodgers. Brought to you by Nissan. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow.